Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 264 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Well, the 4-day work week is a relatively new trend which has been sweeping organizations around the world. There's lots of companies that have been trialing it out. So I want to talk about the 4-day work week and what I think we can learn from it, even if your company doesn't have one. Okay, let's get into this episode right now. So the 4-day work week is a relatively new trend sweeping organizations around the world, and the concept is simple. People work for 4 days instead of the traditional 5 days and maintain their full salary with the expectation that they will maintain 100% productivity at the same time. Now, at first glance, you might think, well, this is a bit crazy. How can you work less hours but still be as productive as you were before? Now, to date in Australia, there have been several companies trialing the 4-day work week, and it seems like they have a relatively strong amount of success here. Now, an article from the ABC newspaper discusses 10 of these companies that took part in a study to assess the effectiveness of this with excellent results. And I'll put a link to that article in the show notes page, which today will be thoughtfulleader.com/264. So these companies were able to maintain productivity while giving their employees an additional day off per week. So in this episode, I'm not going to try to convince you to implement this, although it might be a good idea. I'm going to look at some of the characteristics of the initiative that I believe makes it work and how that might translate into our everyday organizations, even if you don't have a 4-day work week. So what are some of the potential benefits here? Well, the working week originally started as 6 days, but eventually reduced to 5 as a result of union advocacy. So since then, the standard working week has reduced from 60 to 40 hours, and now some companies are at the cusp of a potential 4-day work week, and some of them are doing it already. Now, the benefits of the reduced working week are fairly obvious for employees. They work less and enjoy greater leisure and family time, hopefully resulting in reduced stress and greater overall well-being. They also may feel more productive, accomplishing more in less time. Now, for companies, the benefits have so far been improved morale and employee retention. Now, of course, the 4-day work week does not necessarily translate to all industries and workplaces. At the moment, it really appears to be more suited to what I'd call white-collar professions. A hospital, for example, may have more difficulty implementing this because they are still required to provide care on all days of the week, so they may actually have to recruit more staff to cover the available shifts if they condense them down into 4 days, and it's already hard to recruit staff in healthcare. So there's lots of different challenges in this space. So what are some of the learnings we can take from this? Well, instead of saying that everyone should have a reduced working week, I'm looking at the key characteristics that may help us in any work setting. Now, there are certain aspects of the 4-day work week that I believe are key to success, which can potentially be used to shape how our teams operate. Now, the first aspect I think is interesting is that the 4-day work week really adds a clear constraint to the situation. I think it's quite powerful because it adds a clear constraint to the working week. Now, you might say that the regular 5-day week already has a clear constraint in that you only work 5 days, but I'd actually say that the 4-day work week sharpens our focus. I've noticed that in a standard 5-day week, many people work longer hours and some work on the weekends to catch up or prepare for the next week. But the reduced work week provides an extra free day, one that is specifically meant to be used for activities other than work. Now, I feel that this extra day is treated with more reverence than a standard weekend because it is a key benefit that is provided to employees. Now, when you work for a 5-day week company, nobody tells you that the weekend is part of your benefits. Therefore, the motivation to safeguard the extra non-working day is strong and provides a clearer focus and a reason to work more effectively. Now, whereas in a standard 5-day week, I believe that work can bleed into the weekend more easily with little resistance, and this clear constraint provides a stronger decision point where people can ask themselves, well, is this work worth doing on my extra free day? Or is this the best way to do things if we're going to be able to maintain our extra day off? Or maybe, is this initiative one of the top priorities that we should focus on within our valuable time? The second characteristic I notice about the 4-day work week is that it focuses on outcomes more than hours. Now, in white-collar or knowledge work professions, many companies have become preoccupied with spending the right amount of hours. Someone who stays late is often still seen as more dedicated than someone who goes home on time. However, staying late could actually be a sign of poor productivity as opposed to a lack of dedication. Now, the 4-day work week is more outcome-focused. Can we maintain our productivity while working less? Is the key question here. So instead of trying to fill the hours in the week, we focus on getting the work done effectively because we don't have time to waste. Now, it's worth remembering Parkinson's law here, and that is work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. In other words, if we allow 5 days, it will take 5 days. So when we reduce it down to 4, we tend to find ways to complete it in 4. Another thing that the 4-day work week does is I think it makes us think harder. If you impose a constraint on yourself like the 4-day work week, you're going to have to come up with some ideas to make it work. You don't simply cut a day off your week and have everything work exactly the same way. The reduced working week forces people to think creatively, to do things more effectively or efficiently, or perhaps to work out how you can stop doing them altogether. There is obviously a limit to what people can accomplish in a given time frame. For example, if we decided to cut our working week down to a single day, it would be more difficult to maintain the same productivity. But the 4-day work week also provides us with another nice question to ask, which is, how much is enough? Now, people can work more and more, taking on more clients and more jobs, but at what point does that stop being worth it? Now, another aspect of the 4-day work week I quite like is that it helps people to set boundaries. It gives people permission to take an extra day off. And this permission means that when faced with overwhelming workloads, they can feel more comfortable negotiating or pushing back. Now, when the organization tells people they can work less, they are giving them permission to push back to safeguard their week. This levels the playing field to some degree. Some people are comfortable pushing back to safeguard their free time, but others may not be so outspoken. The permission granted to take an extra day means that all employees are likely to feel safer to set that boundary because it applies to everybody in the organization. And if this is a topic that you're interested in, episode number 92 of this podcast about saying no is a good one to listen to. I'll put that on the show notes page, thoughtleader.com/264. Now, the last thing about the 4-day work week is I think it promotes less time wasting. Your attention tends to be sharper when you have limited time to accomplish something. Now, in my experience working in professional jobs, time wasting was actually quite common, and I sometimes found myself doing it too. Long coffee breaks, talking to colleagues, spending time in long, boring meetings that could potentially have been emails. All of these things happen when we have ample time to complete our work, or if our workload is so big that we know we will never possibly complete everything. A sharper focus means less time wasting, especially when the prize is greater free time. And there's a related article that you can check out, 3 major work time wasters that create an unhappy team. I'll put that on the show notes page as well. So, okay, they're the concepts that I think are useful about the 4-day work week. So how can we apply them? Well, I believe many of the important aspects of the 4-day work week can actually be applied in regular companies too. But you may need to be a bit more intentional about how you do it because you don't actually have the prize of the extra day off. So to start with, we can set challenging but not ridiculous deadlines and communicate them to key stakeholders. This helps to drive focus and create a clear decision point about what is important. Now, another thing you need to do is to pay attention to the outcomes you need rather than focus on the hours people are spending. Now, if the outcome is achieved, should it really matter if someone clocks off early? If this happens often, then it could be that the outcome could be made more challenging perhaps. Now, you can also set yourself an improvement target. Can you perform processes 10 to 20% faster or improve quality without spending more time? Improvement projects also help to drive focus and provide a sense of purpose. Another thing you could try is to have shorter meetings. 1 hour becomes 45 minutes and 30 becomes 15 or 20, this can sharpen the focus and also helps to create a small break between meetings, which eliminates back-to-backs. And lastly, one thing you can try is to give people permission to do good things for themselves, like take breaks, spend time reflecting, and to negotiate their workloads. If you can make these actions a normal part of the way you work, then people will feel more comfortable engaging in them. And even if you don't have a 4-day work week, I think there's a lot we can take from the idea that actually can help our team be more effective. So I'm interested in your comments here. What do you think about the 4-day work week? And what do you do in your team to encourage more effective working? You can leave your thoughts on the show notes page, thoughtfleader.com/264. It'd be great to read them. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And if you haven't already and you like this podcast, it'd be fantastic if you could leave a positive review on your podcast app of choice. You can do that through a link in the show notes page or just going to your podcast app and clicking on the rating, wherever that might be in there. Thank you very much. I appreciate you listening. Keep up the thoughtful leadership, and I'll be back next time.